Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and as we come to the end of the week where you would expect things to slow down going into the weekend's game, it's the exact opposite. We have a lot to talk about, everything from the continued transfer rumours which have taken up the majority of this week, to even an appointment in the scouting department at Celtic Football Club. A lot of news to get through. I want to get into my weekend, so let's hurry up and talk about that. If you haven't already, please make sure to go down below, hit like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers this year. We are almost at 48,000 subscribers this year, so please just keep going down there and doing that for me because you're smashing it. So I appreciate every single one of you. Nonetheless, I want to get through this as quickly as possible today, so enough yapping from me. Let's start off with the news that surrounds a staff appointment, which could be seen as very good news for the club. Celtic are set to continue their renovation of the scouting department, which follows on from the appointment of Paul Tisdale in October of last year. An exclusive last night from the Daily Mail has reported that David Pleat has made a surprise return to football at the age of 80 after landing a scouting role with Celtic. David Pleat, who previously worked for Tottenham as a scout and also as a caretaker manager several times, is back in football at the age of 80 after landing a scouting role with Celtic. Mail Sport can reveal that the former Tottenham manager will work for the Scottish champions by watching games and players in England. He's been brought in by Celtic's head of football operations, Paul Tisdale, the former Exeter boss, and the agreement will run for the next 12 months at least. So this story came out of nowhere last night. There was no report suggesting that Celtic were set to appoint anyone in the scouting department this transfer window. Nonetheless, we got this eye-catching headline last night, and I think certainly eyes were widened by the fact that David Pleat is returning to football at the age of 80. He celebrated his 80th birthday this week, and at that age you would expect folk to wind down, to retire, to call it a day. Obviously still very hungry to be in the game, and I don't think we should let age define anything here. This is a guy who's done a job in football for decades now, certainly knows his way around the game, and at the end of the day, I talked about this in the group chat earlier when his age was brought up, and you know, a scout's a scout at the end of the day. Scouts have one job shared between them, and that's to find a good football player. And if you're in the game and your mind still works, well, you know, a good football player is a good football player. And it doesn't matter if you're 30 years old or 80 years old. You know, you should be able to identify that if it's your job, if you've made it your living for generations, you could say. So, listen, I for one am fairly happy seeing this headline. I think that, you know, kind of redoing that scouting department by bringing in experienced heads, by bringing in people who've been in different jobs is a good idea. They've seen players come through the door. They've seen good and bad players come through the door. They should know what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, the English market is one that is quite complex for Celtic to shop in. It's not easy for Celtic to go down south and pick up the best players because most of them either already play for the big boys or they're getting into Premier League money rather than coming up to Scotland. So, you know, you're putting David Pleat in these positions to find your Matt O'Reillys, to find maybe your Louis Barrys, who we've seen at Stockport this season, probably shopping around these lower leagues. And I think he'll do a fine enough job at that. You know, he's made a career of it, and any support I think is, at the end of the day, nice to see. The bigger the scouting network, the better. And it's one that I'm pretty happy with. David Pleat is the guy who has been credited with finding a few of the domestic gems that Tottenham have seen in the past 10 or so years. Dele Alli and Ben Davies, two of the names who have been mentioned multiple times in articles since being appointed at Celtic last night. And he's very old school in his approach. I was doing some reading and seen there was an article from the Telegraph that has kind of surfaced again now that he's got a job at Celtic, where he was saying it's nonsense nowadays that scouting in person has become a thing of the past. And honestly, I mean, maybe just call me an old soul, I don't know, but I've always thought that football was losing some of its old school roots and some of the things that made it great and some of the things that were just, I don't know, bare essentials that shouldn't have been ditched, and watching games in person I think is something that every club should be doing. So David Pleat's role has been brought into at Celtic, to be brought in to go down south and actually be at the games in person and watch for players. I think it's a great idea for the amount of money that it's going to cost Celtic. In the grand scheme of things, very little. I don't think we can really go wrong with this. And even if he can find this one player in the next 12 months down south who could be a big star for Celtic, he's done his job. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think it's a smart appointment from Celtic. And, yeah, the continued renovation of that scouting department goes on. Right, into the transfer talk then. I suppose it's time we move on to all of that, because there's quite a bit to talk about. If you'd missed last night's Celtic the Thunder podcast, it went up quite late. We deep dived most of the transfer stories that's out there right now. There's been a couple of wee updates since that podcast went live that we're going to cover today, but in general, check out the podcast, go and listen to what me, Kieran and Dylan had to say about everything that's happening, and yeah, you'll basically be filled in to the extent you need to be through that show. However, a couple of wee housekeeping issues to go through. One of the stories that came out late last night after we filmed the podcast was the exclusive from Fabrizio Romano, which effectively has confirmed that Alex Valle will be leaving the club and getting his loan terminated by Barcelona, as the exclusive said that Como are closing in on a deal to sign Alex Valle from Barcelona, with Celtic to terminate the loan, with Tierney close to joining. The exclusive story yesterday confirmed as Como and Barca are set to seal the loan in the next few days, almost there with the finishing flag. It was then in another tweet that Fabrizio Romano replied to someone saying that it looks like Tierney will be here in this window. He says Celtic fans should be excited that the deal is basically done. So this whole story of whether or not we'll see Tierney in January or in the summer, it's looking more and more likely that it's going to be this month. And I'll come back to the point I made in the video a few days ago. I don't think Celtic would let Alex Valle go or agree to that with Barcelona if Tierney wasn't coming in this window. So to me, I think all signs indicate Tierney's arrival is imminent following that update on Valle's future. I wish Alex Valle the absolute best with the rest of his career. He was someone who I quite liked, didn't have any problems with, and would have loved to have seen more of at Celtic. Should he have got more minutes in his few months here? You could probably argue the case that he should have. But, you know, it's a tough position to get into. I think that both him and Taylor have had their ups and downs this season, and nobody's really been able to have a stranglehold on that position. So it's not as if I'm gutted to see him go. I'm not devastated by any stretch of the imagination, but I wish him the best. And who knows, maybe our paths will cross once more in future. But yeah, somebody who definitely has talent, and I'm sure Como will find themselves very happy with the acquisition of him. But it looks like his Celtic career is over. Celtic are reportedly interested in Lille striker Mohamed Bayo. Yes, another Bayo. Remember the disaster of Vacu Nisouaf Bayo. It gives me PTSD just saying the name. However, a different Bayo, according to a publication, Foot Mercato, who are a French publication, have reported that Celtic are interested in the French striker, down to the fact that Kyogo could leave and he's one of the top options on their list. However, rated at £10 million, it wouldn't be one that is easy to sign. I'm going to brush this one off to the side very, very quickly. I've had people already asking me, oh, what's the script with this one? I think it's just one of those stories that's been reported in an overseas publication to get some clicks. I don't think there's much in it at all. If anything, Celtic have maybe scouted the player once or twice. £10 million for a striker is obviously the money we would have to spend if Kyogo left the club. But this one's just came out with really little substance behind it. I just think it's all smoke and mirrors. He has fell out of favour in recent times at Lille, which means he probably is looking for a move away, which would make sense, being linked with Celtic. He'd done fantastic at Clermont Foot when he was there in the past. I think he scored 22 goals in Ligue 2, 14 goals in Ligue 1 when they were promoted. Got his big move to Lille, but since then hasn't really kicked on. A couple of goals this season from the bench, but someone who just sees himself off to bigger things, I'm afraid. I don't think those bigger things will be Celtic. I think this is one that we can brush off for now. I've told you a million times, and I'll say it again, Kyogo isn't going anywhere this transfer window. I would be stunned. I will eat this hat. I will eat this hat if Kyogo leaves in this transfer window. And that is it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching throughout the week. It's been rapid. The way things are changing is unbelievable. I'm assuming by the end of the day and by the time this video's up, we'll have even more transfer stories out there. So hopefully it calms down a little bit over the weekend, but we'll be right back here to report on it all next week. I do appreciate you bearing with me through these hectic times. You know where to come for your transfer news and your opinions on whether something's true or false or just complete and utter poppycock. It's here. Come to the Ryan 118 channel. But for me today, that's all. Take care of yourselves, like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.